In some honor of Ben Affleck's new film Air about the creation of the Nike Air Jordan, we're talking about his first film, the only one he does not appear in, but I guess he has.
Film.
Yeah, his first directed film.
Okay.
The only one he doesn't appear in, and yet he still kind of has an Affleck sensibility to the lead star. We're going to talk about his favorite novel turned into his first feature, Gone Baby Gone. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for finding us. And for our loyal fans, thank you for supporting the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. Of course, leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Do all those good things. We do have a Patreon. Check that out for some great deals and a lot of good content. We just put it up there recently. And a lot of more exclusive tiers is available right now, right?
Yeah, so you can get access for as low as $1 a month, and that gets you Picks with Kyle and Nick, The Road to De Palma. That gets you early access to our episodes before they drop, which is really nice. But then if you join at the $5 tier and up, you get to actually pick some of the stuff that we talk about on the show, which is really cool. You get to have the influence on us. And what's so great is so many of our patrons have picked movies that I either A, have never watched, or B, never heard of.
Yes, yes, that's why we love it. Yeah.
So, and today what we're talking about, Gone Baby Gone. Two Boston private detectives have been hired to investigate the kidnapping of a little girl. As they search for answers, they discover that even the innocent have something to hide as they move toward the shocking answer.
Okay, this is based on the book by Dennis Lehane. This is the fourth book of the Patrick Mackenzie, Angela Gennaro series.
Okay.
This is the fourth one. The first one was A Drink Before War, which won the Shamus Award. If you win the Shamus Award for a detective book and that's your first one, you got a career. And then you get your movies.
And then it's all downhill from here.
Yeah, then you get your books adapted to films, of course. So this one's the fourth. There is a kind of a sequel to this movie book-wise called Moonlight Mile, which I don't know if you're interested. Didn't recognize it. It came out in 2010, where Amanda McCready, who's the baby in this one, has grew up and she's gone again, and they go looking for her, but she's like 16.
Oh, okay.
And so if you're interested in the continuation, it's in book form. I don't know if they're interested in making it a movie again.
So there was. I couldn't get much information on it, but I believe in 2018 there was a attempt at a television series of Gone Baby Gone. It used the same title, but I couldn't find if it was like the same characters or if it was meant to be a follow-up to the movie. Okay. But there was the attempt at making this thing serialized, and I do think that worked pretty well for Justified and for other shows where they had book series adapted to film.
So Dennis Lehane's books of these, Gone Baby Gone, and of course Mystic River, which you get a lot of what his template is. It's very streetwise Boston area characters who are not really on the up and up.
Yeah.
And very shady, very kind of in the dark alleys, kind of a not really nice people.
Yeah. When I found out this was Ben Affleck's favorite book, I was like,
Of course.
Okay, I get it,
Also, if you're interested, Dennis Lehane's first screenplay he ever wrote, fresh screenplay not adapted from any source material, The Drop. I really did like The Drop. That has Tom Hardy and James Gandolfini, and that's James Gandolfini's last film. If you check that out, The Drop, very much, of course, the Dennis Lehane story.
That it was his first screenplay for a film.
Yeah.
That was, okay.
Yeah.
Because I know he had written episodes of HBO's The Wire.
Yes,
which
he came
almost gives
on
a
board.
little bit of why, like, Amy Ryan is in this film, and you have Michael K. Williams, the late great Michael K. Williams, in this film from The Wire. So it's kind of got that symbionce with that as well.
And so she got much accolades. I think she won Best Supporting Actress from this.
She won for the she nominated. She was nominated for the film.
Okay.
Did not win. But again, I think if you have a first-time director, even if it's someone who's acted, even if it's someone who's written, a first-time director making a movie like this, and you get a Best Supporting Actress nomination in your film, that's a good sign. Like, even if the win is not as important as that nomination.
I would like to see more of her because she's kind of came and gone. If somebody find her, put her in another movie, please.
Yeah, I was really taken with her performance. She played Michael Scott's love interest on The Office after this movie came out, and I thought she was brilliant. And her comedic timing on that show was really great. She also appeared in things like Birdman, Bridge of Spies, but it's always been in these kind of like tertiary, less important roles.
Yes.
And she hasn't really had that star-making turn in the same way that I really thought she was going to have after this, because I did not know who she was before this movie. I had never heard of her, and she just appeared. And it was one of the reasons everyone was talking about Amy Ryan in this movie, and I couldn't wait to rent it.
After all these people that are in it, like Ed Harris and, Morgan Freeman and all that.
Yeah.
So based on the book, it came out in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
This is just before The Dark Knight, so this is Morgan Freeman in between the Dark Knight series, working with Christopher Nolan. This is after Batman Begins and before The Dark Knight. Here he plays I would say not really the base, but he's also kind of if the Spider-Web was everything, he's the core. Kind of like everywhere. Almost like opposite of Kiss the Girls, because in Kiss the Girls, he's the detective where everybody, he gets entangled. But for this, it's almost like he's the center of consciousness of the movie.
Yeah, even though he has a much more limited screen time than I remember. When I saw him in the movie the first time, and I'll tell you right now, I forgot most of this story after that first viewing in 2007, because rewatching this film now was almost like watching it for the first time. And but one thing I remember is I seem to remember Morgan Freeman having much more of a presence in the movie, and perhaps it's because even though he's not in all the scenes,
he has a very profound, and that's what I was talking about. He has that presence that's kind of the center. It's a lot of gravity, and he doesn't have to do very much.
Yeah, whereas someone like Ed Harris,
not just based on the profession of his character.
I'd forgotten Ed Harris was even in the movie. I'd forgotten that John Ashton of Beverly Hills Cop fame was even in the movie. There were so many things I'd kind of like taken out of my head. Titus Welliver is an actor I wasn't even aware of at this time.
Oh, from Deadwood.
Yeah, and Dan, he's got his mustache in this movie because he was filming Deadwood at the time, and he could not shave it. It could not be done. His name was
like Hawkeye or something like that.
Yeah, and he's very well known in that. I watched that years later, but I became aware of Titus Welliver on Lost, which he wouldn't do for another 2-3 years. So it was one of those things where he's become bigger in my mind since this time.
So usually with Dennis Lehan, where he writes, it's a very simple premise. Mm-hmm. Somebody kidnapped the baby. But then the more the movie goes, the more deeper it gets, the more complexity it gets. Mm-hmm. So it has this illusion that, it's just a simple tale, but then we delve into a little bit deeper, almost to a point we don't want to know anymore. Yeah. And that's kind of like almost like Mystic River, right? Where Sean Penn's daughter gets murdered, but we realize a lot of the components going around, almost want to take a shower afterwards.
Well, Patrick that's kind of his arc in the film is a lot of like he's doing this, but he doesn't want the bad answer, and so often the answers are bad when you're doing this kind of thing. So I mean,
like Angela, I don't want to find a baby in a dumpster.
Yeah, she does. It's almost like she doesn't want to even help because that takes some responsibility for it. Yeah. Which means when the answer is inevitably bad, you're going to be heartbroken. And he gets that even too, where in the second half of the film where he's got to kind of reckon with now a new mystery has developed that he feels might be related to the old mystery, and he goes in and he learns things that he doesn't want to know again, and it causes that vitriol explosion of vomit kind of thing.
So it's a little more like the detective movies that I appreciated from the 40s. You have very streetwise private detectives, but this is a new modern take out of it, right? This is not Humphrey Bogart playing, wearing a suit and tie and going around with shady characters who actually have tuxedos. This is like plunging into the filth to realize what's going on, and you're not going to get the right responses because everybody's reaction is a little bit different than what you think this should be. Mm-hmm. If you're the mom and your daughter got kidnapped and all of a sudden you tell anybody to F off and who gives a crap, it's different than what you think she would be doing. Yeah. And very standoff. Or you have the overplaying aunt, or like Lionel's very reserved. A lot of the characters are doing what you don't think they should be doing. The private detectives don't even want to take the case. Yeah. They're reluctant to take the case.
But then you also have the cops that are there that are kind of on that side of, sometimes you have to break the law yourself to do the right thing. And it creates that moral dilemma that the second half of the film really builds on well and makes it something where, even after seeing the film now twice, I can say part of me sides with a number of sides in the films. It's a very messy ending that creates complications for every viewer. So it's not... One thing I really respect about Lehane is that as the film gets more and more out there with its ideas, he finds a way to keep the story grounded. And to the point where, because there's a certain level where you hit this could get absurd, and it doesn't.
That's one of his market skills. Yeah, this is going to go ridiculous, but you totally believe it.
Yeah, that kind of reminded me of some of the Cormac McCarthy stuff I've read too. Is that you get to a point where it feels like this should be more absurd than it is, and you kept it grounded. And I think that's something that Ben Affleck seems to have translated pretty well.
So this one, the overall theme, I really believe with this one, it's one single theme. Even though there's a lot of complex things going on, I really believe motivation is parental neglect. Even the motivation of Patrick McKenzie taking on this case, as well as Angela, because if you read the books, he had a rotten childhood. And everybody, Margaret Freeman lost his daughter to, and he's like, I couldn't save her because I'm working. We gotta collect that. So.
Well, I think when you look at that Ed Harris scene with Casey Affleck too, where it's something that even he is like, children are innocent, children forgive. They're almost like kick dogs, where it's like you can be a dirtbag and kick the dog, and that dog is still going to somehow find a way to love you for it.
Yeah.
And there's that complication of how do I deal with that? How do I come to a place of the mother, Amy Ryan's character, the entire time talks about Mirabelle, this doll, and then we come to find that the doll's name isn't even Mirabelle. She doesn't even know the name of her own daughter's doll.
Yeah, because parental neglect is all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a different take on that, where I kept seeing the film about that level of responsibility that you take on, and knowing that Casey
Same
Affleck's
kind of fabric.
Yeah,
We're going through,
we're seeing it from different shades, but it's the same way there, where Casey Affleck's character Patrick is in a place where he's willing to sacrifice so many things for what's considered right, and even he starts to learn that right is not always clean. Sometimes right is maybe worse, but he has that moral code and obligation to it.
And it's all the characters' motivation is protect kids, even though it is the wrong way to go about it.
Yeah.
Everybody's way of, I want to protect this kid, is the wrong way to go about it. Lionel's motivation, the aunt's motivation, even Patrick and Angela's motivation of how they resolve it. Everybody, including the cops, how they handle it is all the wrong way.
Yeah. The best intentions sometimes bring you to the worst ideas.
Yes. Yeah. So, it's how long? It's been almost 15 years?
Yeah, about almost 16 now that the film has been. It was actually one of the last films. It was the last film released by the Ladd Company before it closed its doors.
Oh, right. That's Alan Ladd Jr.
Yeah, which almost caused the film to be lost to obscurity, which would be a really tragic thing for Ben Affleck as a director, because he actually directed 2 films previously that never got released. Don't know much about them, but he made 2 other movies that never made it out. And so if that would have happened a third time, I think it's time to just hang up the boots. But thankfully, we got to have him make this film and then come through with The Town and Argo and Live by Night, which is one I've never been seen. So.
Okay, so up next is our review. That's kind of the second watch for us, what we think of Gone Baby Gone. So I do kind of appreciate Dennis Lehan. It's kind of the same ilk of almost Elmer Leonard. Elmer Leonard.
Yeah, he's another writer who I very much feel the same way about.
But Elmer Leonard doesn't mind going silly sometimes, overly exaggerated.
Yeah.
Silly characters. Dennis, very deep, like very awful people.
Yeah.
They're not really, this silliness is not really hit. Yeah.
Elmore Leonard goes absurd, but then his characters understand it's absurd, which grounds it again.
Yeah.
Whereas this one goes absurd, but it's almost like the characters don't see the absurdity in it. You know what I mean? Like, he grounds it in such a way where the only thing that we see as readers is the absurdity.
And it's almost like all the traumatic events previously from all characters gets brought up to the surface, even though they don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's every time with his book, is something happened in the past that I forgot about, I don't want to deal with it, eventually has to come up with this, whatever the engagement is. They're interacting with them. Still, I think this has a lot of weight to it. I think it's got a lot of good things to it.
Yeah, I'm happy I got a chance to revisit it, because I remember feeling very, okay. You know, when I saw the movie the first time, I wasn't taken with it in the same way, but I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, that ending. And that was something that stayed with me for years afterwards, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to revisit the film, was I just kept thinking, I don't really remember all the details, but I want to revisit it.
Because that ending is where it goes ridiculous.
Yeah.
But you believe it.
Well, and just watching Patrick's
and the motivation
story of failure constantly, and he's trying to do the right thing, but everything he's doing is not working. And like you said to yourself, everybody else is doing the wrong thing, but it's for the right reasons, you know? And when you look at it, everyone has that trauma in their past that has led them to make the decisions. You understand why they're making the bad decisions. Yep. He's the only one making the right decisions, but maybe it's because he hasn't been broken like they have.
Yeah. Very similar to like Mystic River, where, you know, it's Sean Penn's daughter gets murdered, but it always brings up the neighborhood. Secrets are coming out.
Yeah.
Or like The Drop, where James Gandolfini's bar gets robbed, but you understand there's a lot of more things going to it than just a simple robbery that's damaged it. So there's a lot of what comes, it's like surface writing, but you understand there's a lot more things will come up to the surface too.
Yeah. And there's this sense that, I've been to Boston before, and I didn't feel this way about Boston, but I was probably also in some of the
different areas
of Boston, I guess. The way that they perceive the town as being, it almost feels like Boston is its own island. And on islands, everyone has secrets. And the last thing you want is your
everybody knows
secrets.
everybody.
Yeah.
You know Tony from such and such.
Oh,
street.
exactly, yeah. But I feel like that when you have that kind of island mentality of everyone knows everybody, but everyone has secrets from everybody.
Yes,
and
that
people
too.
start to unravel those secrets. What I really appreciated was early on in the film, it's not even before really like we start to peel back layers, but as he's interviewing people at bars, he's getting into fights over things that have nothing to do with finding this little girl. All he's trying to do is get one piece of information, but people won't talk about that because we don't talk about the guys that live down the street. We don't do that, even if they're breaking the rules, even if they've kidnapped a little girl. We don't talk about that. And it's that sense of we stay out of each other's business, but he has to get into business,
Being in a lot of bars in my life, bar fights usually start because of nothing.
Yeah,
90%
exactly,
of the time, it's just nothing.
It's all either miscommunication or
just nothing.
A kernel that people step on,
Right, yeah. Or everybody's got a Chevrolet in the parking lot and you drive up with a Ford.
Yeah. I'd kick your ass. Yeah. I want to give some credit, though, to Amy Madigan, who's the only, real good person throughout the entire film. She plays the sister-in-law, B. McCready.
And her intentions, her motivations, all pure.
Yep. Yeah, she's very much, in a lot of ways, similar to Patrick. Where, Patrick, again, has not been broken yet, and it seems like neither has B. And yet they're again, they've got too many waves coming back at them, you know?
But this made me, when I watched it again, this made me want to watch The Fighter again with Christian Bale.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've gone back to The Fighter way too many times to count. But yeah, you're right.
Very much of that kind of...
The Boston style that is done there of the location. You get the sense that these people all definitely lived around Boston because they capture it in the same way, which I always find so interesting. I feel like if I hadn't even gone to Boston, I would understand, what it's like to be there from films like that.
And no matter what the conditions are of their neighborhood, it's almost like they don't want to escape, even though everything is kind of not the best, pristine.
Yeah.
But there's still, I don't want to leave this place mentality.
I always think about, I tell the story real quick. My brother doesn't want to move out of where he is right now until his kids have grown up and graduated because he doesn't want to take them out of that world that he was in because he cherishes the fact that he never moved as a kid and that he was able to blossom and his lifelong friends are the same people he had when he was 4. I feel like that's the same sense that this Boston is in this kind of film, is that we could go somewhere else, but this is all we've ever known. And so and it's almost like a refusal to test yourself in that way. It
seems, especially with Dennis's writing, it seems like the story can be universal, but still I don't see it being anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you get Affleck behind the camera, too.
Yeah, but it seems such a Boston thing, but it's a universal concept. We could put it in any city, but it's still, the way he does it, it seems like it's authentically supposed to be Boston.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's from the Massachusetts area, but I do get the sense that, it comes down to that, most of the stuff I write is in Minnesota. My idol, Stephen King, tends to be in Maine.
Right. Small town Maine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you understand the town politics of the area you grew up in better than you understand the town politics of anywhere else. Yeah. And so we tend to find ourselves writing about the locations that we feel comfortable in. I couldn't write about the Twin Cities in the same way that I could write about my small town. I understand that world, and I think that's what Lehane does, and I think that's why it translates really well to Affleck.
What do you think of Gone Baby Gone? It's been out for a long time now.
Yeah, celebrating 16 years, and if you've missed it, give it a chance, and then come back and tell us your thoughts on it, and maybe give us your favorite Ben Affleck performance or your favorite Ben Affleck directed film. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. And let us know what you thought of Air when you catch the movie in a couple weeks when it drops.
God, is that coming out that soon?
Yeah, it's in April. It's I had to miss a press screening for it, so it's got to be pretty quick. But Yeah, let us know your thoughts down below. We'd love to hear about them. And
Yes,
once
we
again,
do.
you can find all of my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
If I can get stop coughing. Yeah, you can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts.